Hello, folks. Happy weekend. Today I thought it'd be fun for me to talk about some of the iconic characters that I enjoyed watching growing up, especially when I was a kid, and still have very fond ties to now, and how they sort of became relevant in my life, really. So I've picked 12 with a couple of honourable mentions, and I thought I'd just talk about them and hopefully you find this relaxing and potentially can fall asleep. So number 1, I've gone for The Rock. Now, I know The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is very, very popular and a huge celebrity, a huge Hollywood star. But as The Rock, that wrestler for me was so much fun. When I was quite young, he was so much fun. He has electricity, the most entertaining, character in sports and entertainment. He was just great. I got one year for Christmas. I got The Rock, the Greatest of The Rock DVD, and I remember very vividly being ill from school one day and just lying on the sofa with a duvet and watching The Rock's greatest hits, his greatest fights, greatest moments, all the way from his first wrestling match to his at the time last or sort of finale of his peak of his prime. And I just remember it was so much fun. Some of the rivalries he had with Mankind and Stone Cold, just iconic wrestling. I don't know. I don't follow wrestling anymore. But back then, that was such a prime era for me. I mean, Undertaker, Triple H, Big Show, The Rock, Stone Cold, the Hardy Boys. Me and my friends used to sort of replicate their moves. I'm sure as many of you did. Replicate their moves and their signature moves, and we played the PS2 games for hours on end, doing the people's elbow. That was so much fun. And we'd recreate the moves with pillows and on sofas, and we'd get told off for doing that, and so it's all going to end in tears, and it usually did. But I think for me and a lot of other people in my peer group, that sort of golden age of wrestling was really fun. Number 2, I've gone for an absolute classic, Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, I think, is iconic for a lot of us. His funny demeanour and his friendship with Shaggy and all of the crew of Mystery Inc. It was just so much fun, and all the different creatures and all the different villains they had to fight. And when the films came out, that was like a whole other level to it. All those films are so good, and the way that number 2 brought in so many characters and villains for them to sort of to face in that one, I thought was excellent and really good fan service. And I look back on those films with really fond memory, but the proper classic cartoons back in the day are so much fun. They're just so wacky. They're really they're easy to watch, and some of them are actually pretty spooky. I remember very vividly. I don't know. I can't remember what it was called. It's the underwater captain fella in his scuba suit. I remember that one really well. The tar monster I remember really well. Captain Cutler's ghost. That's it. Captain Cutler's ghost. What else? The Knight one. I can't remember his name. Black Knight, I think. Just some really iconic villains in that show, and the way they just all get really comically unmasked at the end. Such a classic trope for that show nowadays. And even to my late teens, the later Scooby-Doo's. I don't know the name of it. It was the new Scooby-Doo ones. They were actually really quite good. I remember watching those coming back from school and on the weekends, thinking that they were good. Number 3, I've gone for Vegeta from Dragon Ball, specifically Z. Goku obviously is the big character from that show, but when I was younger, my friend used to always be Goku, and I would usually tend to, on the whole, be the sidekick character. So I was Vegeta. So we used to role play like the fusion into Gogeta, and he used to be Goku, and I used to be Vegeta. And I think since then, I've always sort of preferred the sort of secondary character to the main character. Vegeta's just so badass, right? He's got wicked pride. He's got one of the, well, I'm not saying one of the greatest character arcs ever, but he's got a really not good character arc, going from the proper villain all the way to, you know, not disliking the characters to sort of being part of it all at the very end. So he's really fun to watch for me. He's really powerful. Yeah. 4, I've said Ash Ketchum, and I don't think you can say Ash Ketchum without Pikachu. I think they come hand in hand. They're very much together. A massive part of my childhood. My mum says to me all the time that she used to absolutely hate having to watch Pokemon when it was on the telly. She used to think it was absolute drivel and hated me watching it, but I think we all watched it as children, didn't we? And it carried on into now, and you know, Pokemon's still going really strong. I haven't been able to play many of the new games because I don't have a Switch. I'd really love to, but I don't have one. I think maybe I will at some point. But yeah, Pokemon's still going really strong. I think they had a sort of finale with Ash Ketchum, didn't they? Very recently, and with Pokemon, so it'll be sad not to see that anymore. But it'll still go on. It's such an iconic series, and his quest to be the very best, I think, was so special to a lot of us. And we sort of went on that journey with him through all the different regions, and they sort of mirrored that in the games, and you could play through it as well. And his rivals with Gary, and all the way back to the very start when Pikachu didn't like him, and they had that whole storyline when they had to get to know each other and bond, and then go collect all the iconic Pokemon and catch them all, and then become the greatest trainer there ever was. And I think he achieved that. Number 5 and 6 are very similar, and also not similar, from the same IP anyway. Number 5 is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi, when I was younger, we had Phantom Menace, we had Clone Wars, we had Revenge of the Sith coming out. And I remember specifically the Clone Wars being one of my favourites. It's one of my least favourites now, but Obi-Wan in that was so cool. And he had his iconic blue lightsaber, and he was like kicking butt, and properly being a proper Jedi. It's nice to see him sort of grow up from a Padawan in Phantom Menace, and then a mentor in Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. He was just great, and Ewan McGregor does such a good job playing that character. And whenever me and my friends used to play Star Wars, I actually used to have Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber, but I always kind of wanted to be Kenobi, and I think he still lives on in pop culture and Star Wars legendary as it is now. And I really enjoyed his latest spin-off show. I thought that was really good. Number 6. Oh, this is in no particular order, by the way, because this probably is my highest one. Number 6, Darth Vader. Darth Vader, for me, I love a good villain. He's so commanding. He has such a presence on the screen. He has his iconic Imperial March music. When we were first introduced to him in A New Hope, he's just so ruthless, and he's such a good villain. And he has that whole arc through to Return of the Jedi, his redemption. Then we see his whole upbringing and his whole turn to the dark side in the prequels. he has one of the best arcs in cinema for me, and it's a really good story. He's just so cool. I remember playing. I haven't played the new Jedi game, but I played the first one, and when spoilers for Jedi Fallen Order, when he turns up at the end, it had my jaw to the floor. It was such a fun experience having to sort of fight him, if you like. I mean, you don't really fight him. He just like kicks your ass and you run away. He's iconic, absolutely iconic. Number 7, again from the same IP, Yoda. My favourite Yoda is 100% Dagobah Hermit Yoda. When R2D2 he smacks R2D2 with his stick, and he's like the crazy old Jedi, and Luke's like, you cannot be the Jedi that's going to train me and make me better. You just can't be. He's just this little old hermit. He looks like he's going crazy. But then you obviously go through that story, and he teaches Luke all about how to become one with the Force, and how to, all in all, essentially defeat the Emperor. And then you see him in the Clone Wars flipping around against Count Dooku and doing all his little flips. And on Battlefront, that's pretty fun to play. And just the way he speaks as well is part of everyday life, really. I mean, everyone knows who Yoda is. Everyone knows how Yoda speaks. Number 8, I've gone for Legolas. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is 3 of my favourite films, my top 3 films. My most fond film and my favourite film of all time is Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I remember going into the shops. It was actually Woolworths with my uncle, and we picked out the DVD. And I remember watching it, and the Battle for Helm's Deep just had me floored. I just remember was riveted to that screen, and I used to fast forward all of the Smeagol and Frodo and Sam sections just to get to the Legolas, the Aragorn and Gimli story. And the Helm's Deep battle is just incredible. I think the CGI still holds up to this day. The practical effects that were done on those films were outstanding, second to none. And the sort of modelling they use for these battles was incredible. But Legolas, for me, is particularly cool in that film. I remember the one particular moment where he gets that orc shield, I think it is, and slides down the stairs, and then it fires his arrows twice, and then pulls out his swords and then starts swinging. I think that and the music flares up in the background, and it's just a wicked experience. I love Legolas. Apart from that, none of the main characters in Lord of the Rings are my favourites. I think they all are amazing, but I wouldn't put them in my nostalgia category. But Legolas for sure. I remember getting, for one Christmas, I got a really good and really quite big Legolas figure, and I remember taking it to church because my mum made me go to church at the time, and I remember playing with it in the pews, and it was like the coolest thing I ever owned. It had the 2 swords in the back, in the back, and you could put them in his hands. It was great. It was just great. Number 9, I've gone for, from Lord of the Rings, the Witch King of Angmar. One of the probably most underrated characters in that whole IP, and doesn't get enough screen time. I haven't read the books personally, so I don't know how he appears in the books, but I think was one of the most mysterious and the coolest characters that there is in that whole saga. The way he commands the Nazgul and one of the ring bearers, and how he came to be the way he is in Lord of the Rings. I would like to read up on more, to be fair, but I think that's really, really cool. I always like a sort of a villain, a good villain. and he's a really quite formidable villain. You can see it when he's like the only one really that Gandalf has trouble with. Well, apart from the Balrog and Sauron, but in the films, it's the only thing you feel safe when Gandalf's around. But you can see he is quite fearful of the Witch King of Angmar. Number 10. Number 10? Yeah, number 10. Let's go for Eric Cartman. So this isn't nostalgia for me being really young. I think that would be inappropriate, but this is me when I was like a teenager. And I remember watching so much South Park, and to this day I find it hilarious. And Cartman is just the epitome of that show, definite main character. And the way that he speaks and the way that he is just outrageous to everyone, and his little schemes is incredible and really funny. And just some of his one-liners and iconic quotes are so memorable. And I still quote sort of to this day with my friends. Number 10. I was number 10. Number 11, Spider-Man. We all love Spider-Man. We all know Spider-Man. I remember watching the Spider-Man cartoons as a kid. He's so iconic just because, well, not purely, but part of it is his demeanour. Peter Parker, I think, is what makes Spider-Man, and his quips and one-liners and things that he says in the Spidey suit are funny, and they're really appealing, especially to younger audiences, and it's just an easy watch. It's just cool, isn't he? It's like, I remember when the Sam Raimi films came out, and the webs came from his wrists, and he could swing whenever, and you used to do the little hand gesture and then pretend you're Spider-Man. And I never got any of the like web shooters, but we used to pretend to just sort of shoot each other. And then lastly, Batman, those Christopher Nolan Batman films, and to be fair, the Batman cartoons when I was a kid are so sort of fundamental in like superheroes and how I watch superhero films and sort of how I look at Marvel and DC films now. Batman's just so cool, and we all know that he is so cool. Like, he's got no powers. Yeah, he's got loads of money. He's got no powers. He's just a dude who knows how to fight, has horrific trauma, but that fuels him into these cool gadgets and these cool fights. And I think the Nolan films really brought a deeper and darker side to that. And he's got some of the most iconic villains there is. Joker, Two-Face, Bane, all of them, Killer Croc, Deadshot, people like that. They're just wicked, and he still continues to this day. And the Batman's really weird. Batman's become sort of like James Bond in the sense that they just keep rebooting over and over and over again, and no one seems to really care about it. My honourable mentions for this list: Homer Simpson. I think it's The Simpsons at 6 o'clock on Channel 4. I think lots of us had that same experience of getting home from school, having tea, sticking on 6 o'clock Simpsons. We all love The Simpsons, don't we? And Homer's part of that. They're all great characters. And Springfield in general has got great characters, but I think Homer Simpson is like the main character, just the way how he's so dumb and the things he says. And then Dexter from Dexter's Lab. I remember whenever I watched Cartoon Network, I think that would always be on. Dexter and Dee Dee. I remember those two being quite funny together. And I remember very vividly the episode where I don't know if he wants to learn French or if he has to learn French for something, but he wants to learn French, and he sticks on this audio tape and he falls asleep with it on, and the audio tape gets stuck. And the only thing he can say when he wakes up, the only thing he's learning is omelette du fromage, which I think means cheese omelette. That's the only thing he can say. I remember quoting that all the time and being in absolute stitches from that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this list. If you want to If you want to tell me in the comments what your favourite characters are from your childhood, that would be really fun. And if you want to hear more stuff like this and check out my other videos, then please feel free to subscribe for more and like this video. Otherwise, have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.